Hello, true believers, and welcome to another edition of BK's Bullets. My name is not Brent Cassina. My name is Jim Fanis, and from time to time, I talk to you guys about comic book related television shows. And today, I want to talk to you about CW's decision regarding the lead role in Batwoman. If you watched Brent's channel before, specifically when I talk about CW shows, you know that for the most part, I'm a fan of a few of them. I was a super huge fan of Arrow. I particularly enjoy Black Lightning. I've kind of given up on some of the other ones. Batwoman really intrigued me early on because it was a fresh take on the whole Gotham thing. Well, at least for me. I understand if you're a hardcore comic book fan, Batwoman has been around for a very long time. But for a more casual fan like me, it was neat to see somebody kind of be Batman, but not have to carry all of that baggage that Bruce Wayne has and all of those years and years and decades, really, of history and previous villains and everything. And you kind of get to experience a new story, a fresh new start. And what I really liked about Batwoman and the show in general was that it showed a progression of Batwoman starting off as somebody who didn't even want to be a superhero. A lot of these characters and a lot of these CW shows have a very predictable arc, which somebody either steps up to rise to the call or is got some kind of superpowers, but again, steps up and rise to the call. I think that's the key thing here. And the first couple episodes of Batwoman was kind of boring in that sense because you had a very reluctant hero who eventually learns to embrace it and really in her own right becomes a pretty cool superhero. There's a lot of villains and stuff that were added into the show later on, particularly this whole drama with her sister and, this other stepsister that she has. And it really started to kind of build up to this greater mystery outside of the story of the week. The problem is with all CW shows, they're extremely reliant on the main character. And the way that CW writes most of their shows, the main character gets, 60%, probably more, honestly, screen time per episode. And you're focused more on the main character's interaction with all the other side characters, so much more so than the side characters interacting with each other. And that's okay as long as you have a strong character who can lead multiple stories across the board. And I think Arrow is a great example of that. Oliver Queen had a very, very mysterious, dark past, which we saw featured prominently through years and years of flashbacks. And by the end of the show, you got to see the army that he had essentially built. And after his death, you got to see all these people mourn with him and reflect on their time with him. In the episodes where Oliver Queen was not prominently featured, though, I think we can all agree that Arrow definitely floundered. And as much as I liked characters like Diggle and Arsenal, good old Roy Harper, they never got the screen time to become fully fledged characters in their own right. And that was very disappointing. Unfortunately, CW does that with every show, and Batwoman is no exception. The entire show's focal point really is around her. Now, you do start to get into a little bit with her father and the detective agency. Sometimes you see a little side story with some of the other characters, but really and truly, it's all about Batwoman and Batwoman and Batwoman, the name of the show. And that's fine. It's very ham-fisted in that sense. However, CW made a really bizarre choice the other day to not recast the character, but to essentially reboot the entire show by getting a new character to take over who will basically become Batwoman 2.0 essentially. This does a lot of really negative things for the show. Primarily, it really ruins all the relationships that we led up to going into season 2, almost to the point that I would argue you basically have to reboot the show. You have to just say season 1 was an Elseworld tale and we're going to start from scratch. Because the reality is a lot of the show was this coming of age story, and now that's gone. The characters and how they interacted with each other was really minimal. If you look at any scene outside of family members interacting with one another, there isn't really a lot of cross banter. It would be very odd for somebody to just pop in and say, hey, I am now Batwoman. Please let me take over. Oh, I already have a tech guy. Oh, I already have a friend who works in a medical lab. Oh, I already have an in with, the head of security for this police force. So I'm the new person and let's just rip, roar, and ready to go. I don't see how they could realistically sell that. And I feel like the premise going into this new season is going to be really marred with a lot of, well, why are these two characters even talking? It's too much serendipity. Now, if they want to restart the show, I think that's the best choice. Keep the same characters. You can keep the same actors outside of Batwoman, obviously. But give them a slightly different tale. Have them start working together differently. Maybe this is an opportunity to tweak some of the things that weren't going that great. But it doesn't make sense to just have everything magically swap over. And I know how CW's budgets are. I know they have a limited budget when it comes to sets. I know they have a limited budget when it comes to costuming, and particularly since a lot of these actors are signed into these mega deals or, these long deals that span across multiple shows, particularly due to the crossovers when they do occur, you're going to see the same faces again. And it just seems like a very odd decision to just basically snap your fingers, but not really snap your fingers, and reset, but not really reset. If they pull this off, I think it would be absolutely amazing and incredible, and I think we could all look back on this and say this is cool. But there's a lot of people, I know Brent is one of them, who hasn't watched Batwoman, who kind of gave up on it due to other reasons, and says, hey, I'm going to catch up on it when it comes to Netflix, when I can watch it advertisement free later on. I would argue there's no point. There's nothing really you're going to glean from the first season. Yes, you're going to see a little bit of interaction on some of the villains. There's some particularly good episodes early on in the season, particularly with Alice, kind of seeing how she came to be who she is, and you kind of get to understand her diabolical nature. But the big charm of her character always was that she was battling against what was perceived to be her sister. And when you take that dynamic away, it doesn't make sense. It would be like Bruce Wayne dying and then some new person suddenly becoming a character, and then somehow they have that long contorted history with the Joker or another named villain that suddenly is just not the same. I think what really made this Batwoman so special was that she did reveal her identity to a lot of people early on, which is always weird with these CW shows, but we could talk about that at another time. However, knowing that her main villain, Alice, was her sister, knowing that they were related, at least, as we perceive to understand. I mean, who knows what they had written in the future. Understanding their relationship amongst each other, it really does make you wonder, well, for a new person to come in, they're not going to have that history. Sure, Alice can still be this evil Joker-like, maniacal, I want to watch the world burn because I'm crazy. But that human element that she had, that connection that she had to was what her sister was, is gone. And I feel like if you look at that same type of relationship across all of Batwoman's original relationships, I think you'll see the same thing, that every single one of them had a very distinct personal element to each other. In the same way that when Team Arrow really started to ramp up towards the end, a lot of people, myself included, kind of felt negative about it because Oliver had a very special relationship with a close group of people. Him and Diggle were very close. They were brothers through the whole thing. You can't just add new characters later on and have the same level of compassion and feeling. It's just not going to work. And I think if you're going to rebrand a show and you're going to put a new character in at the lead position, you're really setting that show up and that actor really for failure because they're not going to have that same dynamic relationship. It's just not going to work. And the characters, which really are, all the side characters, which really are kind of one-note characters to begin with, are going to have a hard time identifying, and you as a fan are going to have a hard time relating. So I hope that maybe, I don't know, my little part of giving back, my message to the CW would be, please don't do this. This is a really, really bad idea. Please rethink this. I think there is definitely room for a Batwoman type show. I think there is definitely room for more Gotham in the Arrowverse, and I'm really particularly excited to see how that shapes out in the future. But I think this is a really ill-advised decision, and I really, really think you guys are setting yourselves up for complete failure. And I don't want to see that because the CW shows are very, it's a very small audience to begin with. don't alienate the people who are already fans. And I think that that's what's starting to happen here. So with that, I'd like to close out this video. Hope you guys found it informative, or at least informational, or whatever you want to call it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment, rate, and subscribe to Brent's channel. And until next time, I will see you in the funny pages.